I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but here I am. My name is Diane, I'm 63 years old, and my husband John and I have been married for over 35 years. We faced many challenges together raising children, navigating the ups and downs of our careers, and now enjoying our retirement. But something happened recently that I never saw coming, and it's been on my mind ever since. Let me take you back to the night that changed everything. It all began about 6 months ago. John and I were relaxing on the couch after dinner, enjoying a glass of wine and reminiscing about the past. Over the years, we've always had a strong emotional and physical connection, keeping things interesting in the bedroom by trying new things here and there. But on this particular evening, he suggested something completely different. With a playful grin, John turned to me and said, "Diane, I've been thinking about something that could be fun for both of us." Intrigued yet cautious, I raised an eyebrow and asked, "What is it?" as I leaned in closer. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he revealed, "I want to see you with 2 younger men." I was stunned, completely taken aback. Sure, we had been adventurous before, but this was something I had never even imagined. My mind raced with questions. Was he serious? Did he genuinely want this? And if I'm honest, part of me felt curious. The idea, though shocking, stirred something inside me. After all, I hadn't been with anyone but John for decades. But then I wondered, was this really what he wanted, or was there something deeper behind it? We spent the next few days discussing it. John was patient and kind, assuring me that it wasn't about him being dissatisfied or wanting a change. He simply thought it could be a fun and exciting experience, something different to spice up our relationship. It took me some time to adjust to the idea. I'm not as young as I used to be, and I wasn't sure if 2 younger men would even find me attractive. But John kept reminding me how beautiful I was to him, how much he still desired me, and that this fantasy wasn't about age, it was about sharing a thrilling, intimate moment together. Eventually, after a lot of thought and a growing sense of excitement, I agreed. We decided to move forward slowly, finding the right people and ensuring that everything felt safe and comfortable. John took care of the arrangements, and I trusted him completely. A few weeks later, the night finally came. I was nervous but also strangely excited. John had invited 2 men, both in their late 30s, who were attractive, confident, and clearly eager to please. We started with dinner, had a few drinks to ease the tension, and the conversation flowed surprisingly well. As the evening progressed, the tension in the room became almost tangible. I could feel their eyes on me, and it was exhilarating. John sat close to me, his hand gently resting on my thigh, softly stroking it while whispering in my ear, telling me how beautiful I looked. Then, one of the men reached out, lightly brushing his hand along my arm. I glanced at John, and he gave me a reassuring nod, his eyes sparkling with excitement. The touch was electric, and before I knew it, the other man had moved to my other side, his hand on my lower back, gradually sliding upward toward my shoulder. Everything began slowly, innocently, even gentle touches, soft kisses on my neck and shoulders. The sensation of being the focus of attention from 2 men, not just one, was overwhelming in the most wonderful way. I felt alive, desired in a way I hadn't felt in years. Their kisses deepened, and their hands explored my body with a confidence that sent shivers through me. John watched from across the room, his gaze never leaving mine. He looked pleased, thrilled even. It felt like we were sharing this intimate, secret moment together, even though he wasn't directly involved. Soon, their hands were everywhere, and my blouse slipped from my shoulders. I could feel their lips on my skin, warm, soft, and full of urgency. One of them kissed me deeply, his tongue exploring my mouth, while the other's hands moved lower, sending waves of pleasure through me. I could hear John's heavy breathing in the background, clearly enjoying the moment as much as I was. I couldn't believe how much I was enjoying it myself. The feeling of being touched, kissed, and caressed by 2 men at once was something I never thought I'd experience, but there I was, fully immersed in the moment, lost in the sensation. The night was a whirlwind of passion and exhilaration, with each kiss and touch drawing me closer to a feeling I couldn't quite describe. I felt liberated in a way I hadn't experienced in years, and throughout it all, John was right there, watching, encouraging, and loving me in his own unique way. Once it ended, the men left, and it was just John and me again. We didn't say anything for a while, we just lay there, holding each other as our hearts raced. Finally, he leaned in, kissed me gently, and whispered, "Thank you." I smiled, feeling a deeper connection with him than I ever had before. Reflecting on that night, I'm still in awe of how it strengthened our bond. It wasn't only about the physical aspect, it was about trust, intimacy, and sharing something completely different with the person I've loved for decades. It's not something I ever thought I'd experience, and I'm unsure if we'll ever do it again. But that night I realized that even at 63, there are still new adventures to explore, new ways to connect, and new ways to feel alive. It's a night I'll never forget, and one that brought John and me even closer. If there's anything I've learned, it's that relationships are built on communication, trust, and sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone. I'm not saying this experience is for everyone, but for us it was the adventure of a lifetime. You might assume that by now we've been through it all, but what happened a few months ago completely changed everything. It was one of those quiet nights at home, the kind where the conversation flows easily, moving between topics like our kids, old memories, and future plans. But that evening, John brought up something unexpected. We were sitting on the couch, his hand resting casually on mine, as the conversation drifted to the past, how things had evolved, and how we'd always managed to keep the excitement alive between us. Then, he revisited the fantasy he had shared with me earlier that week, the one that left me breathless and shocked when he first mentioned it. This time, he smiled at me with a hint of nervousness, as if he wasn't sure whether I had seriously considered it. "Diane," he began, "I've been thinking more about what we talked about before about seeing you with other men. I think maybe it's something we should try." His words hung in the air, and I felt my heart begin to race as the weight of what he was suggesting settled over me. I had already thought about it more than I cared to admit. The idea of being with two younger men still stunned me, but I couldn't deny that a part of me was intrigued. And then, doubts crept in. At my age, would I even be attractive to men in their 30s? I had the insecurities that come with getting older, the softening of my body, the lines on my face, the grey in my hair. I wasn't the same young woman I once was. But John had always made me feel as beautiful and desirable as ever. Yet the question nagged at me, why did he want this? Was he bored with me? Was it about him, or was it something he thought I wanted? John, ever in tune with my emotions, noticed my hesitation. "I don't want you to feel pressured," he said softly, squeezing my hand. "It's just a fantasy, something different. But only if you're comfortable, Diane. I'd never push you." Despite my reservations, there was something enticing about the idea, something completely outside our usual safe space. The way John presented it made it about trust, about trying something new together. He reassured me that it wasn't about dissatisfaction. He still loved me, desired me, and cherished our life together. This was simply about exploring something exciting. Over the following week, we talked about it more and more. I began to open up, asking questions, testing my boundaries, trying to determine if I was genuinely interested or just entertaining his desires. What I discovered surprised me. I was curious. More than that, I was excited. John explained that it wasn't just about the act itself. He wanted to see me adored and desired by other men, all while knowing I was still his at the end of the night. There was something about the idea of seeing me come alive in the presence of others that fueled his fantasy, and as he spoke, I realized it was starting to fuel mine too. After a few long discussions and, admittedly, a few nights of very passionate lovemaking as we talked about it, I finally agreed. I told him we could try it, but only if we took things slow and made sure we found people who respected our boundaries. John's face lit up like I had given him the greatest gift in the world. He kissed me deeply, whispering how much he loved me and how incredible this would be for both of us. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully embrace the idea. I was going to do this not just for him, but for me as well. We decided to look for two younger men in their 30s who were respectful, mature, and of course attractive. John took the lead in finding them. He discreetly navigated websites, screened candidates, and ensured they understood exactly what we were looking for. I trusted him completely with the process. As the day approached, the anticipation started to build. I found myself constantly thinking about it. What would they look like? How would it feel to be touched and kissed by them? I had been with John and John alone for so many years that the idea of two strangers exploring my body was as thrilling as it was terrifying. In the week leading up to the night, I even found myself shopping for lingerie, something I hadn't done in years. I wanted to feel confident and attractive, so I picked out a black lace set that hugged my body perfectly. When I showed it to John, the way his eyes lit up told me I had made the right choice. The night had finally come, and as I got ready, my heart was racing. Applying makeup with shaky hands, I felt a mix of vulnerability and freedom that I hadn't felt in years. When I walked into the living room wearing a sleek black dress with the lingerie underneath, John's reaction calmed my nerves. His eyes were full of love and admiration as he kissed my forehead and whispered, "You look stunning." At around 8 p.m. the doorbell rang and my stomach flipped. John answered the door, and in came David and Marcus, just as planned, two men in their mid-30s, attractive, confident, but also respectful. They greeted me warmly, with big smiles and polite compliments that helped put me at ease. We shared a bottle of wine, and the conversation flowed easily. David was charming with a mischievous glint in his eye, while Marcus was more reserved but just as engaging. They were clearly interested, but they let me set the pace, not rushing anything. As the evening continued, the tension in the air grew. John sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee, squeezing it every so often to reassure me. I could feel David and Marcus's eyes on me, and it was intoxicating. Never in my life had I felt so desired not by one man, but by three. After another glass of wine, Marcus leaned forward and gently brushed his fingers along my arm. The touch sent a jolt through me, like electricity. I glanced at John, and he gave me a slight nod of encouragement. My heart was pounding as I leaned toward Marcus, letting him kiss me softly. His lips were warm, gentle but firm, and completely different from John's kisses, but just as exciting. As Marcus deepened the kiss, David moved closer, placing his hand on my lower back. His touch sent shivers through me. Before long, I was caught between them, their hands slowly and deliberately exploring my body, and I allowed it. Marcus kissed my neck, his breath hot on my skin, while David's fingers traced the curve of my waist and his lips brushed against my shoulder. My body responded in ways I hadn't felt in years, alive with energy and desire. Their touches weren't just physical, they awakened something deep inside me, something that had been dormant for far too long. John watched from across the room, his eyes never leaving me. His presence, his excitement, only heightened my own. It was strange, exhilarating, being with these two men while knowing John was there, watching and loving me through it all. David's lips found mine again, this time more insistent. His hand slid down my arm and rested on my hip, pulling me closer to him, while Marcus's hands moved to my thighs, his breath heavy against my ear. Every touch, every kiss was more intense than the one before. I felt as if I was drowning in sensation, completely lost in the moment. Things quickly escalated. David's fingers slid the strap of my dress off my shoulder, revealing the lace of my lingerie underneath. His eyes widened with appreciation as he pressed hot kisses to my bare skin. Marcus, not wanting to be outdone, kissed his way down my collarbone, his hand tracing the outline of my body. In that moment, I felt utterly free, desired by two younger men, while my husband watched, completely absorbed by every movement. David pulled me closer, his hands firm on my waist as he kissed me deeply, while Marcus's lips traveled lower, his hands leaving trails of fire along my sides. My body responded eagerly, every nerve alive with sensation. I felt free, unburdened by age or insecurity, basking in the attention of these men who simply wanted to make me feel beautiful and desired. As things progressed, my mind wandered back to John. I turned to look at him, and what I saw only intensified my desire. His eyes were locked on me, filled with admiration, excitement, and love. He wasn't just observing, he was a part of this experience in a way that words couldn't capture. It was as if he was living through me, sharing in every kiss and every touch. The night took on a rhythm I hadn't expected, slow, deliberate, yet filled with an urgency that left me breathless. David and Marcus were completely focused on me, and I reveled in the attention. We moved from the couch to the bedroom, the three of us entwined in a web of passion, while John watched closely. The intensity of the moment grew with every touch, every kiss, deepening the connection between us. The room was filled with soft breaths and whispered words, and I was completely wrapped up in the passion surrounding me. David's hands were on my back, his lips on my neck, while Marcus held my hand, kissing down my arm. Through it all, John's quiet, burning intensity grounded me. He reminded me that this experience was as much about us as it was about the act itself. I looked at him once more, and our eyes locked in a long, unspoken exchange. In his gaze I saw love, trust, and the joy of seeing me so alive, so free. The night reached its peak in a flurry of pleasure and emotion that left me breathless. It wasn't just about the physical sensations, it was about feeling wanted, cherished, and connected to John in a way that transcended words. I never imagined that something like this could bring us closer, but there we were, transformed by the experience. As the night came to an end, David and Marcus respectfully thanked us and quietly left, leaving just John and me in the peaceful quiet of our home. The energy in the room still lingered, but now it was just the two of us. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart still racing as I tried to process everything that had just happened. John came over and knelt in front of me, taking my hands in his and looking up at me with the same love and admiration I had always known. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern and tenderness. I nodded and smiled at him. "I'm more than okay," I whispered. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, and we stayed like that for a long time, basking in the afterglow of what we had just shared. There were no words needed between us, just the understanding that something powerful had happened. That night changed us. It wasn't just about the physical act, it was about trust, vulnerability, and exploring a new side of our relationship together. I never thought I'd find myself in such a situation at 63, but life has a way of surprising you. Sometimes those surprises lead to a deeper understanding of yourself and your partner. In the weeks that followed, John and I were closer than ever. We talked more openly about our desires, fantasies, and our love for each other. What happened that night wasn't just a whim, it was a moment that strengthened our bond. Would I do it again? Maybe. But what I know for certain is that I've never felt more connected to my husband than I do now. Our relationship, built on years of love and trust, gained a new layer from this experience. As for the fantasy, it was thrilling, intense, and unforgettable. But more than anything, it reminded me that age is irrelevant when it comes to passion, love, and connection. Those things don't fade with time, they grow stronger, especially when you embrace new experiences together. So, that was the night that changed everything for John and me. It wasn't what I expected, but it was exactly what we needed, bringing us closer in ways I never thought possible. Thanks for listening to my story, it's one I'll never forget.